What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I wanted to talk to you about Among Us and the things that you can learn from this popular game. Now if you don't know what Among Us is, it's essentially a detective based game where two of you are imposters and everyone else in the crew is just normal people trying to complete tasks on a spaceship. And the imposters' jobs is to try and kill everyone on the spaceship before they complete their tasks or before they kick the imposters out of the game. But this game has quite a lot of depth of understanding to it. And although it's a very simple game at the surface, some of the things that you can learn from this game are actually quite complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the rise of this game and its kind of popularity and how it grew, and how you can apply things from how it grew and from the game itself into your everyday life, because actually there's quite a lot of life lessons that you can learn from this game. So as I said, you may be thinking, but this is a video game, there's not, life lessons from the way it's been developed or to how you play the game that I can really draw from it. But actually, it's weirdly specific how many things from the game and the way that the game has become successful apply to everyday life and can actually be used as a skill set for just the everyday person to improve their career or improve their living situation. So the first thing that I want to point out about this game is that this game is innovative. It's a new take on a new genre of game. It's something that hasn't really been seen before or hasn't gained much popularity before. And actually, this is something that applies to lots of new games that become popular. If you think of games like Fortnite, Fall Guys, Call of Duty Warzone, they all take different approaches or an innovative approach to an existing type of game. Now, some might argue that certain of these games aren't as innovative as others, but actually the innovation and the style of game is something that's really important, and that's something that's applicable to you too. If you can be innovative, if you can develop new ideas or different takes on an existing idea that other people won't think of, then you'll always be in a position of power where people will need you around because you're the person who comes up with creative ideas. So innovation is one great thing that you can get from these games, and it's something that you can apply in your everyday life to try and make yourself more successful. But another thing that you can learn from these games, and this is more from Fall Guys than it is from Among Us, but is the fact that you can't get too comfy at the top. A few months back, Fall Guys was the most popular game out there, everyone was playing it, it was going phenomenally viral. But now, very few people upload videos about it, and even fewer people are playing it and recording themselves playing it. And this is something that's really important. It's the reason that Fortnite has stayed at the top for so long, is because Fortnite is innovative and adaptive and updates as regularly as it can to keep the player base interested. And this is something that you can apply in your life, which is once you get to the top or once you succeed, don't get comfy, because you might find that you lose the attention of people. And instead what you should try and do is be innovative and continue being creative and to bring new aspects into your life that other people hadn't thought of. And that will keep you in a good position for as long as you can keep coming up with new ideas. The next thing to point out is that you don't need to be the very best or the most technologically advanced to succeed. If you look at other games that are out there like Assassin's Creed or Gears of War or things like this, they have far more complex graphics, far more complex game narratives compared to games like Among Us or Fall Guys. And yet games like Fall Guys and Among Us are the ones that get popular, and they do so fantastically well. So it just shows that you don't need the best idea or you don't need the absolute perfect idea to be successful. And in fact, most of this comes down to marketing, and marketing is something that is hugely influential in life. A fantastic product can absolutely flop if it has terrible marketing and it isn't promoted well, whereas an average or even slightly below average product can do fantastically well with a strong advertising campaign. Now, a good example of this is to look at Apple versus Android. It's no hidden secret that Android has far more variety than Apple does, and you can do a lot more. There are a lot more versatile phones. But Apple has an absolutely fantastic user interface and an incredible marketing strategy, which has meant that they've stayed at the top of the phone game and the personal mobile phone game for as long as they've been around. And that's something that you can learn from as well, is that you don't need to be the top of the top. You don't need to be the most creative, or you don't need the best product. But you do need to know how to market what you have so that it's appealing to others. And tying into that story of how you market to others is something that I think is really relevant from Among Us, which is that your story is everything. Being able to tell a good story and build a good narrative is one of the key skills that you can learn in life, because you'll need it at every opportunity, whether it's through just making friends or applying to jobs and in interviews, or whether you're pitching for investment as a business, or whether you're just trying to convince somebody of your opinion on a matter completely separate from everything else. being able to tell a good story and have a good narrative is something that's vitally important. And the same is true in Among Us. When you're trying to convince people of what you've been doing, whether you've been doing your tasks or whether you've been lying about your tasks and you are in fact the imposter, it's the narrative, it's the way you tell the story that will convince people of your ideas. And that's one of the most important skills to develop. The reason it's one of the most important skills to develop at the end of the day is that the majority of people don't buy products, they buy people or they buy narratives. So what I mean by this is, for the majority of your purchases, whether it's clothing or cars, it's very unlikely that people just buy based on the product. Because if everyone was just going to buy based on the product, everyone would buy a second-hand Prius and drive them around because they're phenomenal economy and they're incredibly cheap to run. But people's perceptions and people's understanding of narrative is what twists them towards buying a BMW or a Mercedes instead. And this is also true in the fashion world, where you buy things based on your narrative. Nike is advertised as sportswear, whereas things like Converse are advertised more towards skaters and that side of life. And so the narrative that you follow then dictates what it is that you're most likely to purchase. And this is something that I think applies too in your own personal life. If you can tell a narrative of yourself in a certain light, then people who follow that kind of thing are likely to follow you. So if you want to be regarded as highly successful and if you want to be regarded as a good business person, then you need to work on your narrative of the things you've done in business and be able to tell a story that shows exactly why you're competent at the things you say you are. And people will start believing you and will start following your narrative and will buy into you more than just the products that you create. The next thing, and this is a slightly more serious one, is that imposters don't just exist in the game Among Us. Now, in Among Us, you may be sitting there doing your tasks in electrical, and somebody you think is your friend is actually flipping the light switch the wrong way every time you flip it the right way. Now, this is a relatively simple, menial task, and it's not something that will create issues. But in the real world, imposters of that kind do exist. And essentially, these imposters are people who act as your friend, but they're not your friend. They're people who are just using you and being friendly with you to try and gain something from you. So in life, I like to think that there are three categories of people that you'll meet. There are people who want the best from you and will actively seek to try and get the best for you. There will be people who are impartial to you, who are just kind of on the sidelines. And then there will be people who will be using you for something. They'll either be faking to be your friend for success, or they'll be staying friends with you so long as they see a value to you. And it's those kinds of people that you want to avoid. You want to be able to identify a friend's network of people who are either impartial, because sometimes they can give a really good opinion on a situation and they don't necessarily put you on a pedestal when they do so, or you want people around you who are very close-knit, who are your supporters, your cheerleaders, who push you to achieve as much as you possibly can. And this is something that you see most prevalently in very successful people. Very successful people tend to have a very tight niche group of friends. And this is something that's quite important because it's all about character judging. If you have 5 really close friends who you know want the absolute best for you and can give you an honest opinion on everything, that's far better than having 100 friends, none of them that close, and say 40 of them actually only being friends with you because they want to live off your success. So that's something you can learn from Among Us as well, is that imposters exist in real life, and trying to identify them and keep them out of your life is something that's really important and can help you stay focused and successful, because you won't have these extra weights dragging you back. But also, being able to identify imposters is one thing, but actually understanding who is an imposter later on once you are successful is something that's even more important. You see this quite often, and it is unfortunately a thing that happens all the time, but once people get successful, people come begging with their hands out. People see success and they want to emulate it and they want to get as close as they can to that person. But sometimes they just go about it in the wrong way. And so that principle leads into one of my favourite quotes of all time, which is by Will Smith, the actor, which is, "If you're absent during my struggle, don't expect to be present during my success." And I think that lays it out perfectly, which is that the people who stick by you during your struggle are the people who should be with you when you're successful, so long as they are the right kind of people and they were the ones motivating you for success and keeping you in a positive mindset. And that the people who show up once you succeeded, just because you are successful and are trying to get something out of it, may not have the best intentions for you, and you should always be a little bit careful with how you treat them. Another thing that I think is extremely prevalent that you can learn from Among Us, which applies every day, especially now with the speed of media, is that the person reporting the news doesn't necessarily tell the whole truth. So in Among Us, this applies when an imposter self-reports after they've killed somebody, and they try and tell a story of how they saw somebody else kill someone, or they found the body and it was in the middle of nowhere and they have no idea how it happened. Well, this is something that's very similar in real life, which is that you can't trust the media, especially with how quick clickbait articles and fake news get spread around the internet. You have to always look at things with a judgmental eye. So don't just trust the news report because it comes from a major news outlet. But if you don't look into their news stories and if you don't look at opposing opinions, then you're always going to have a slightly warped sense of the truth. So this is something I think is really important, is to reflect on where news is coming from and try to understand whether it is genuine or whether it is just an imposter trying to twist a story in their own way. Another core message that you get from Among Us is obviously communication and teamwork. When you're trying to figure out who the imposters are, one of the most important things is being able to communicate eloquently where you've been in the map and the tasks you are doing. And this builds people's trusts in you and also makes it more likely for people to not vote you off and believe your story. And again, it's that teamworking of bouncing ideas off each other, figuring out where everyone was, and working together towards a common goal, which is actually one of the most useful things that you can learn from Among Us, is how you can work as a team and identify strategies which work well for identifying imposters. And so the final point I wanted to make, which is the most important thing I think you can learn from playing Among Us, is that life is about having fun. The whole point of Among Us is not winning or losing, it's about having a good time with your friends. At the end of the day, you're not going to remember how many times you've won or how many times you've lost, but you probably are going to remember that time that you walked into electrical and your mate happened to vent out and accidentally just do it right in front of you. Because it's those funny little situations that you remember in life, and making sure that you have fun is way more important than focusing on winning or losing. And this is something that I think quite a lot about, which is that the journey is always worth more than the destination. Of course, the destination can be something fantastic like becoming a millionaire, but it's the things you learn along the way and how you develop that make it all the more important, and develop who your friends are around you and how you function. So that's the key thing that I think you can take from Among Us, which is just to have fun in life and remember that you should be enjoying it. At the end of the day, we get one life, you should be enjoying what you're doing. So that's everything from today's video. Now, if you think of anything else that you have learned from Among Us, stick it down in the comments below and I'll be sure to reply and let you know what I think of it. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe down below and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. It does wonders for the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.